Here in the Accounts tab, this will give you some insight into your overall accounts and some high-level visibility into those, as well as some insight into login activity within the Google environment here. To begin with, there's going to be a status graph here, which is just going to give you some high-level insight into total accounts, suspended accounts, accounts that have two-step verification on, as well as accounts that have suspicious logins associated with them. And these will be all numbers here, which you can dive into and take a look at further here. Next to that is going to be app usage activity. This is just going to be overall activity within the Google environment itself here. Next to that is going to be accounts with risky apps. So this will be a number of accounts that have different risky apps associated with it. And that can go all the way from critical risk apps all the way down to low level risk apps. Accounts with issues here is going to give you some insight into accounts that have the most risks, phishing, or malware associated with them. And this will just be a number value here that you can dive into to look at those accounts that have risk, that have phishing, or that have malware associated with it. Within the table here below, you'll be able to dive into the accounts themselves and take a look at some high-level information here. So you'll be able to see things like the email ID of the end user, last login activity here, OU that the user belongs to, what third-party applications are authorized into that user's account, Google Classrooms associated with the account, what shared drives are they members of, what groups are they a part of, and then what files do they have. And this is going to include files that contain risk or malware. So here you can see if we got this triangle icon, it's going to indicate that there's some kind of risk within those files. This bug icon here would indicate that there's some kind of malware within those files. And then if there was a phishing icon here, that would indicate there's some kind of phishing within those files. Now, what we mean by files is that's going to include both Drive, email, shared drive, potentially Google Chat, and classroom announcements if there are risks associated with those as well too. Anytime you see any blue text here, that's going to allow you to dive into that information here directly. As you can see here, we've got some risk, we've got some malware, but we don't have any phishing here in this case. Additionally, there is a storage section here as well too, which is going to give you some insight into how much storage space your end users are using. Each account will have that number listed here, and that's going to include a number of different areas. So it's going to include Gmail, Drive, Google Photos, and then others here as well too. For accounts that are non-admin accounts, you will be able to go ahead and suspend those accounts or reset those user passwords as well right from here too. And then lastly, there's also a share via email to share these high-level details on this account to somebody else if necessary there. Lots of options to go ahead and search or filter as necessary there too to further expedite your search for different information here or look for very specific accounts. Now next to the Accounts tab here as a whole, there's going to be a sub-tab called the Login Analyzer. The Login Analyzer is going to allow you to do some deeper dive looks at login activity. So here you can go ahead and use a lot of the different parameters here to search for very specific login activity or look at things more generally. If you do want to focus in on things more specifically, there's fields like user where you can search for the login activity of a specific user, login activity with one specific IP address, look for logins by country, city, does the login have two-step verification, various event types here. This is going to include things like login successes, login failures. You can see there's a number of those different event types there as well. Specific internet service providers is also an option. Login type, if you want to do a more general one, can be a great, especially unapproved. This will be looking at all the logins from outside the US or your geo-fenced countries there. State will be the specific state with where the login occurred. So that would be also equivalent to provinces as well too, or US states. Login date here will allow you to choose a date range as well. So if I'm going to go ahead and just run a simple one here, just looking for any unapproved logins. So here we can see there's a number of them that are actually successful logins here. To begin with here, you're going to see a time frame of when the login occurred. You're going to see the user in question that logged in, IP address, location, and then in parentheses here, you're going to see the internet service provider. This can be very helpful to give you an idea if this is something where it might be a case of a VPN, a compromised account, or some other issue with the account there. So always good to keep an eye on who that ISP is, because a lot of times it may indicate to you that there may be something amiss here. For example, this M247 Limited is a cloud hosting service provider, so they host a lot of different kinds of servers and things. So this could potentially indicate someone might be using a VPN. There's a lot of VPN providers out there that could be using their infrastructure there to go ahead and host things. If you do come over here to the event type and click on it, you'll be presented with a map of where that user logged in from, and then the high-level information here, including the login type. And this is going to give you an idea of how they actually access the account. So did they access it using their Google password or something else to actually get into that account directly? And that could be also very helpful to give you an idea of, is this more likely actually the end user, or is this a case of something else going on there? And then once you finish any of your searches, you can always click reset there. It'll take you back to the main screen you were just looking at. So certainly lots of different options there to go ahead and play around and look for different login events. And the login events here too will be captured via policies as well, which can definitely be very helpful as well too as you're diving into that login activity. Back over to the accounts, one of the things to note too is any of the email IDs here that you're seeing allow you to dive into that account directly. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a user here. And what you'll be able to see here is some different information giving you some insight into what's going on with this specific user's account. So some high-level information here, email address, OU, things of that nature there, some last login information here, and then some overall high-level information about locations, accessed IPs, things of that nature here, groups, total number of applications, how many policies has this particular individual user violated, account issues here, so how much risk is associated with the account, phishing, malware as well too. Down below here, you're going to see the login activity of this one single individual user. So if you need to dive in and take a look with login activity, is this a pattern where this user was consistently logging in from outside the US, or is this one more of a one-off situation there? And you can always click into the event types themselves, and this is where you'll see that login type again too to give you some additional information. Did they use their Google password? What did they use to actually get into their account there directly? Some different ways here to search and filter on here as well too, IP address and location, and then the filter here has a lot of different options as well too where you can dive into that information further and look at things. This is also where you'll find a courses subtab, which will list all the various Google Classrooms that a specific user is a part of here. So we can see those listed here. These are clickable as well too and would take you over to the Classroom tab to further dive into those classrooms. At the top here, there's going to be a report button. One of the most common reports that can be helpful to run here is going to be found via the download audit activity. And this is where you'll be presented with some different options. A very popular one would be login activity. So you can take a look at the login activity of this particular individual account up to 6 months, and this will download as a CSV report for you. Definitely can be very handy if you need to expand beyond the time frame. The login activity here, generally speaking, is not going to be every single login event ever, so this can help further expand that and take a look. Is this a pattern of things going on here with login activity, or this a more one-off situation there? Another option as well too would be Drive, which can be very helpful too as you're looking for things, making sure if this account did potentially get compromised, what activity occurred within Drive within this time frame or things of that nature. So you can see here there's a lot of different options that you can choose from there. And any of those reports can be run up to 6 months, as you saw, and then you can always download those as necessary. Next, the report button here is going to be kind of an interesting looking icon. This is an integration with the Haveibeenpwned website to see if this particular user was part of any publicly known about data breaches. Very handy if you do run across an account that looks like it's been compromised or there's maybe some strange behavior with it. Sometimes it may be a case where there was a data breach that occurred that's been publicly reported. So you can click into that and take a look and see if this particular account matches any publicly known about data breaches. Sometimes it may, but not always. There are certainly data breaches that occur there too that may not have been publicly reported yet. So do keep that in mind. Next, that Haveibeenpwned icon there's going to be the ability to suspend an account or unsuspend an account, or also change the password right from here as well too. So you can take those same actions you saw in the main accounts tab just on each individual account as well too. So we'll cover the accounts tab there. Next up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the login activity policies.